Well, good morning, everybody. Well, I can see we got a packed house for me today. Well, welcome to the second day of the 2014 Mackinac Policy Conference. And we're off to a great start. Doesn't everybody think so? I think we had a tremendous day yesterday. I'd like to start today by thanking our diamond sponsors, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, and ITC Holdings Corporation is proud to support this event. I'd also like to thank our other platinum sponsors, AT&T, Conway McKenzie, MLive Media Group, PNC Bank, and the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. Without their generous support, none of this would be possible. Our to-do list overview. One of the most important elements of this conference is the annual to-do list. Over the past 4 years, the Chamber has chosen itself to be accountable to action items that are inspired from discussions during the conference. We're putting actions to words and ensuring that the conversations here at Mackinac produce results. I encourage you to engage in these conversations on the 2014 conference to-do list. Please share your thoughts via the conference app or tweet using hashtag MPC14. At the end of this conference, with the governor's input, we developed a list of 6 items important to moving the economic needle in Michigan. On your chair, you have a report highlighting the progress on the to-do items. I'm pleased to say that every to-do item is either complete or in the process of being completed. To-do item 1, convene business and community colleges to better link talent needs of employers with community college programs. The Chamber convened a group of business leaders and community college presidents to identify key initiatives to be implemented that would help close the skills and curriculum gap. Work continues to help educate high school students on high-demand technical fields and promote the customized workforce training that most community colleges can provide. To-do item 2, expand the successful lessons learned trips to U.S. cities to help inform ongoing renaissance in Michigan's major urban centers. I'm pleased to announce that the Chamber will be leading a trip to New Orleans with the city's leaders, including Mayor Mitch Landrieu, who you will hear from tomorrow. To-do item number 3, expand upon the cybersecurity lessons learned at the Mackinac Policy Conference by developing and executing efforts that will help the business community of the 21st century cyber threats. I'm pleased to say that the Chamber's website features a cybersecurity page that offers resources to help these critical issues. We also developed a cybersecurity things you should know tip card that we included in your conference bag. To-do item 4, rally the regional business communities to support comprehensive immigration reform that helps drive economic growth and pilot a program in Michigan. We're a proud supporter of the governor's plan to secure additional employment-based visas for Detroit and continue to advocate for meaningful immigration reform in Washington. To-do item 5, promote the Detroit region as a growing and vibrant IT and entrepreneurial hub. The Chamber has helped launch Start Grid Detroit, a collaborative community where entrepreneurs can work with their peers around Michigan and the world to test, share, and grow ideas. To-do item 6, commit to celebrating the entrepreneurial spirit, its successes and its failures at the 2014 Mackinac Policy Conference. Entrepreneurship is one of the conference's pillars this year, as you'll notice throughout the agenda. You've already heard from Jim Clifton and Larry Weber and a panel of national CEOs and entrepreneurs moderated by Fortune Magazine's Nina Easton. All this content highlights the opportunities and challenges facing today's entrepreneurs. Now I'd like to talk a bit about the critical issue on this year's agenda, the importance of STEM education. I'm glad to see education remains as a conference pillar with a sharper focus on STEM education. The modernization of our educational system is vital to the nation's future if we intend to continue to be an economic leader. There continues to be a gap between the needs of business and the skills of graduating students. Today, too few students are graduating with the basic skills necessary to enter the next step of education or training programs for 21st century jobs. Michigan business professionals, governmental leaders, and CEOs all have a role to play. ITC has focused its support on several areas of education. First, we have invested in new and improved ways to educate all of our elementary school children. Second, we have collaborated with major universities to help them improve their power engineering programs. Third, we have worked with our community colleges to develop and train our skilled trade employees. There are a few issues as important to the economic future as STEM education. There is no shortage of opportunities to make differences in this space, and I know many of you already are. I hope you will continue to do your part. You'll hear shortly from a panel on the discussion of STEM importance to Michigan's economies. Thank you again for your commitment to Michigan and for making our state the best possible place to live, work, and raise a family. I look forward to what Hank Cooney and the Chamber come up with for the 2014 to-do list. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin Mission Critical STEM Education and Michigan's Economic Future, sponsored by Pure Michigan. Please welcome the Executive Vice President of Chemicals, Energy, and Performance Materials at the Dow Chemical Company, Joe Harlan.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Those were terrific comments by Joe, and I want to thank you all for having me here today, but also as representing of Dow Chemical. It's a pleasure this morning to talk to you about the state of our economic well-being in the United States of America. Now, I know, by the way, that the program says that I'm supposed to talk about STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math education degrees, but frankly, I believe they're one and the same. In fact, as I say, as the state of education goes, so does our state's economy. And I'm convinced of this, which is why I'm very concerned. And I'm not only concerned about the United States, but I'm very, very concerned about Michigan. And I will tell you that it's an important topic, and it's something that's near and dear to our hearts, and frankly, our future depends on it. Now, why do I say that? I say that because, frankly, we're going the wrong way. On the topic of educating our people, on the topic of preparing our children for real jobs in the real world, and on the topic of preparing our workers so that our businesses have enough workers to capitalize on the economic recovery, I absolutely believe we are, in fact, headed in the wrong direction. We need to turn it around now, and we need to turn it around faster than anything we've ever done before in this state. Now, if that sounds harsh, consider this. In the United States, we are currently on the verge, and I mean this, on the verge of what could be one of the biggest investment eras of our lifetime. Why? Because we've been able to harness shale gas and cheap, affordable energy. For years, we were captive to foreign energy, but that's no more. We now have those supplies. And the potential for economic benefit from that cheap energy has never been better. At the very core, this affordable energy is leading to unprecedented investments. For example, at Dow today, we are actually tracking over 130 energy-related investments that represent over $100 billion. That's billion with a B. That's in the United States alone, and we're just getting started. These natural gas supplies and reshoring of businesses could be responsible for 2.5 million jobs being created this decade. And the manufacturing sector alone could generate 1 million of those jobs. And let me remind you, every dollar of activity economically that the manufacturing sector delivers to the economy it delivers another $2.30 downstream to the general economy. Another example is at Dow Chemical, for every dollar we spend on natural gas as a feedstock, when we value add that natural gas downstream, we provide an additional $20 of benefit to the economy. Now, those are good economics. So I imagine right now you're saying, wow, Joe, those are great opportunities. It's awesome. You know, what's the big deal? What's the problem? Well, here's the problem. The problem is twofold. Number one, all those investments will depend on the continued supply of that cheap and affordable energy. And number two, all those investments will depend on the availability of workers to not only build them, but to staff them once they come up. Now, I have no doubt that the cheap energy will continue to be available for years to come. I believe policymakers will be prudent and make the right decisions in order to make sure that we have that cheap energy. But when it comes to having enough skilled workers in the workforce for all these investments, I think it's doubtful. And some would say it's even a pipe dream. And frankly, with all due respect, with the state of Michigan's education system, some might say that fantasy may be the more appropriate word. And ladies and gentlemen, that really is the problem of our day today. In the future, I'm convinced that the most successful states and the most successful nations won't be the ones with the most oil or the most gold. They won't be the ones with the biggest armies, and since I'm in Michigan, I'll say this, they won't be the ones with the best football teams, okay? And they won't even have the highest scores on Candy Crush. Those won't be the most successful states and nations. The most successful states and nations will be those who educate their children today for meaningful work tomorrow. And it's really that simple. It's really that simple. Now, before we go any further, let's be clear about one thing. There is not a worker shortage. Last year in this country, there were 12 million unemployed people and many, many more underemployed people. But yet today, businesses are reporting over 4 million open jobs. Now you ask why? Well, frankly, it's because there's a shortage of STEM-related capabilities out there. We don't have a worker shortage. We have a skills shortage. The skills shortage is so bad, I actually had a colleague just recently, he made the comment, he said, if you can spell shale, you can get a job today. But still, they can't get enough skilled workers. They can't do it. So how does that affect us here, who are lucky enough and fortunate enough to call Michigan home? Well, in Michigan, STEM jobs are forecast to grow over 16% this decade, which means that we need to develop another 250,000 STEM-educated workers in the next few years for areas in high advanced manufacturing, high-tech, high-paying jobs. We need highly skilled workers, not laborers. And we're not talking about Ph.D.s or engineering degrees. Mostly we're talking about students who need some post-secondary training of some level, either an associate degree or dedicated programs in related areas that leads to certification or apprenticeship. But as I alluded earlier, Michigan has a problem. Today, only 41% of third graders are proficient in math in the state of Michigan, and only 68% are proficient in reading. And did you know that Michigan was only one of 6 states that actually posted losses in overall student performance in 4th grade reading since 2003? And in the 4th grade math, over the same period, Michigan gained 1 point of proficiency which ranked second to last. So I'm not so sure what we're doing to Michigan's education system or what grand experiment we're on. But as a businessman, I'm highly concerned about our ability to compete in the coming future here. We need to turn this around, and we need to turn it around now. Time to try another policy, because frankly, this one is a tragedy on multiple levels. The first tragedy, and I think we see it in many cases, our students are being left behind. They don't have the competitive skill sets to compete in today's world. And second, it's a tragedy for our state and our businesses within the state, because they also will fall behind and not be competitive on the global stage. Consider this: if the United States, U.S. student math proficiencies equaled our neighbor to the north, Canada's, we could add $1 trillion of GDP every year to our economy. Now, maybe put that in simple terms or something you can relate to. Every single person in this country's paycheck, every single person, would increase by 20%. Now, that's real payoff. Now, I gave you those sad facts, and I apologize, but they are facts. But let me give you another amazing fact that I think kids need to hear, but more importantly, parents need to hear. Did you know that last year, the starting salaries for a bachelor degree at the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology exceeded the starting salaries of a bachelor degree at Columbia University? Did anybody know that? Those South Dakota kids, they out-earned Columbia University's kids for undergraduate bachelor degrees. But they didn't stop there. Their salaries were also higher than kids at Cornell, Case Western, Princeton, Duke, Rice, Dartmouth, and even the big brand, Harvard. Yes, STEM jobs pay, and they pay very, very well. Another amazing fact, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 2/3 of all job openings in the next decade will come in occupations that don't even require a post-secondary education. But they do require more than we're giving our kids today, and frankly, it's our fault if we don't. So what can we do? How do we stem the tide? Well, we at Dow are concerned as any other manufacturer. We have over $4 billion of investments today in flight in order to capitalize on that cheap and affordable energy. We're adding hundreds of jobs in manufacturing and in technology and R&D. And we're fighting a workforce dynamic where 40% of our workers today are retirement eligible. So you can see why we are so active and frankly ardent in education. Because we depend on raw talent. We actually call it the human element. It's the element we can't live without. And we're so distressed with what we see, we've actually formed an internal STEM Executive Council, chaired by a vice president, who provides evaluation and coordination on the company's global STEM strategy. And I'm happy to say we have many, many programs underway. In Midland, for example, we have a program called Fast Start with Delta College. The program retrains displaced workers. We give them jobs in emerging economy jobs, such as electronics, high advanced manufacturing, chemical operations, solar, batteries. Dow developed and donated the curriculum, and we supported it through equipment and content evaluation. And I'm pleased to say over 89% of the participants in that program were in job placement. It's a great example of community-based business and education partnership. And it's just one program we're involved in. I'm pleased to say there are many, and we're very proud of it. But frankly, we're one company, and it's not enough, and we need your help. Business, education, and policymakers must come together to solve this crisis. And how? Well, we at Dow have come up with a 4-step program, and we call it a plan to close the gap. The first step, we must commit to improving teachers' skills. We must use mentoring and formal training. Many studies show that knowledgeable and motivated teachers inspire our students. And frankly, folks, our students do need inspiration. Second, we must engage with our students with hands-on learning as a model to build, support, and grow the STEM pipeline. Let's face it, kids today, many kids, not all, but many kids have a phobia of math and science. And I wonder if they know that an associate's degree in a STEM-related field exceeds a bachelor's degree in all other non-STEM-related fields. That's inspiration. Now, you might enjoy how we take this message to the streets. Here's a picture of the Dow #3 sponsored NASCAR. And some people think this is a marketing tool to display Dow's capabilities, and it is. That's what we do with it. And if you want to talk about lightweighting or structural adhesives, specialty lubricants, or structural materials, we can. But there's another reason why we sponsor this number 3 car. Here is the car at a recently held Philadelphia Science Festival that Dow Chemical sponsored. We used the number 3 car to explain the science and the chemistry behind racing. For example, the kids didn't know, and maybe you don't either, for every racing team, there's anywhere from 200 to 300 STEM-trained technicians and engineers behind each car, behind the scenes, to make that car go faster. So, in effect, we get them excited about science, and that's the second step. The third step is to encourage creative partnerships and collaborations to build the talent pipeline. We need better curricula in our secondary and community colleges. We need more co-ops, more internships, more partnerships. It's a key step, and one that I'm happy and proud to say Dow's been involved in many years, but we need more help. The last step is where you can directly help us. We need you to advocate for higher performing schools and curricula. We need you to be a leader and essentially a change agent for our education system. As policy leaders, please take the time to engage with educators and business leaders and learn what we need to succeed. Put these all together and you have what we call STEM the Gap. Our students have an achievement gap. They're falling behind. Let's close it. We have a skills gap. Let's close it. We have a passion gap. Too many kids and parents don't understand the benefits of a STEM-related career. We need to remind them of those South Dakota kids, and we need to remind them of the science and technology that helps make that NASCAR go faster. Let's close this gap. And finally, we have a vision gap. We've lost our way on how to educate and to understand the critical connection it has to our economic well-being. Together, let's close that gap. Now, I know this is not an easy problem, obviously. If it was, we'd have solved this a long time ago. But I do take heart in what Governor Snyder once said, and I quote, "Michigan is a leader in making things and making things work." So, let's make our education system work for all of us. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for making Michigan such a wonderful and beautiful state. And thank you for inviting me here today to talk about our shared economic future. Thanks for listening.
Please welcome the President and Chief Executive Officer of Kostal North America, Walter Maisel, President and Chief Executive Officer of Lawrence Technological University, Vrinder Moudgil, President of Kalamazoo Valley Community College, Marilyn Schlack, and the moderator, Mary Kramer, publisher at Crain's Detroit Business.
Well, good morning. Joe, you teed it up very well, the issue of the day. And you ended with Michigan is a place that knows how to make things and make things work. And I want to start with a good news story, believe it or not. And that's something that I think has developed since this conference last convened. And Walter, I think you're very involved in the MAT2 program. We know we have a skilled trades crisis. We know that a lot of people will be retiring. We know there's a shortage of skills now. And this new program's been created through community colleges and employer partnerships. Can you describe very briefly how you're involved in it and what the benefit is to you and your company, MAT2?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit a longer story, but in a few words, the key is really the partnership between the states and the industry. Okay. And it only works in that partnership. We have the skills shortage, as we all know. We employ engineers for, I call it sub-engineering work, and we need to fill that gap in order to stay competitive. And what we did we partnered with a couple of German companies because we are known to that German dual education system. And we said we also could do that here. And then we really started from scratch with the community colleges because there's an academic path of that, and that's an industry education and training. So that's a really company training path as well. And the kids, it's a 3 years commitment, or actually a 5 years commitment from the companies and from the students. So it's a 3 years education. And then they get a job guarantee for another 2 years. And it's almost 50% company training and 50% academic training.
Okay, so you're paying the freight, you're paying the students who are selected for this program. Yep. Have been vetted, you get to hire them. They're working in your company, but they're also spending time in the classroom.
Right.
And so they're guaranteed not only a skill, but a job.
Right.
Okay.
So they are our employees for the 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a new program. It's been piloted through several community colleges. Marilyn, are you involved in this, or what are you doing at Kalamazoo Valley Community College to work more closely with employers? Are there any comparable programs on the west side of the state?
Several. I think the first thing is that we've taken a little different approach, and we're not doing MAT 2 quite as Walter described it. For example, we're working very closely with several companies in Southwest Michigan in mechatronics. American Axle is one of those, where they not only donate their talents in helping us develop the curriculum, equipment, and then really advising us so that when the students come out, we guarantee that they'll have a competency-based diploma, and then they go out into the workforce. Secondly, we're trying to work more closely with the high schools. We heard yesterday afternoon about STEM and K-12. We really need to find a way to articulate so that we're building on the skills as they go through the system. So we've developed a pre-mechatronics program, again, with the help of local businesses, to help students learn what they haven't learned, as Joe has pointed out, and then build on those and move into advanced mechatronics.
How do we make STEM cool? I mean, we mentioned earlier, went backstage, the first robotics project. Your NASCAR or your IndyCar program, it helps inspire kids. But is that part of the deal, that kids just are not turned on by science? And how do we turn that around? President Moudgil.
If I may, I think robotics program at Lawrence Tech, we just celebrated 15th year of an event called RoboFest, which Festival of Robots. They have a theme like Thanksgiving or others, and the kids from grade 4 to 12 participate in different categories. The beauty of that program is that you enthrall the kids at very young age. They think it is fun. It is not forced by parents. Yeah. They love to do this because it's like a toy for them. But in fact, the kids are learning mechanical engineering, electric engineering, mathematics, and science and other areas by doing those little robots, not knowing that that's what they're really doing. So when they grow up, they have fancy for these, they want to pursue them. As opposed to our traditional education, where we have deficit of trained personnel, when the kids go to junior high school or senior high school area, they just feel science is difficult, math is difficult, and they turn away to softer courses and graduate. So we are graduating a large number, as was mentioned by our speaker earlier, people who had diploma but not skill that the industry wants. So when these kids grow up, when you tell them you want to be an engineer or architect or scientist or a doctor, they're ready. They're already doing that from grade 4 on. Right. So it's fun for them. Yeah. I think to introduce them early on is the best way to increase our workforce and reduce the deficit. And this is something they like. I think the parents and society and corporations can help us broaden that platform. For example, we have been doing, as a private institution with resources, much of it held by our corporate partners. But if we make it a state-level issue, because we have the know-how and opportunities, we could actually change the entire community of Michigan students.
Joe, what do you think about making the approach to making science and technology fun at an earlier age?
You know, I think it's absolutely an imperative. Everybody knows as parents, you get the kids early. You don't get them later on after you missed them. But I think it's a great example of what you just talked about. We need to run it like a business, which is very simple. If you want something noticed and you want something exciting and cool, you market it. We need to market it through our schools. We need to market it through programs that are appealing to them. So young kids, it's robots. It's transformers. It's letting them work on that. It's Dean Kamen's FIRST program that helps them build robots in teams. They're working and learning on a technical skill that they have no idea that they're doing because they're actually playing and having fun. So I think it's about marketing, but I think it's also about an intense focus on the parents and on the educators and on the governments to come together to make sure that there is a minimum amount of time. It shouldn't be, you know, a day-to-day drudge on math and science. No one could handle that, I don't think. Maybe a select few. But a little bit of everything goes a long way, and then I think it piques the interest, and I think we start to develop those STEM-related desires and interests that will manifest into STEM degrees.
Well, yesterday we had the research that showed how the attitudes towards the auto industry of young people in Michigan, actually the young people, according to the research, they had a higher opinion of the auto industry, not the highest, but it was decent, compared to parents and counselors in schools. So we have an attitude, I think, maybe towards highly skilled manufacturing, which requires STEM skills. And how do we get, you know, will Dow host teachers and counselors and parents? I mean, how do we get them engaged in seeing that that's where the future is? Their kids could have, like you said, with a two-year degree, earning as much perhaps as a four-year degree in a non-STEM field. How do we do this? How do we connect?
Well, if I may, yesterday's Mich Auto event highlighted the fact that the highest desired profession for the families and students was healthcare, and then auto was way down. Part of it is that I've been here 40 years in the state, that we have a cyclic economic issues.
Yeah.
So parents who have been around for a while, they know that auto industry has gone up and down every few years. And they believe they want to put their kids into a system that is more stable. Healthcare is always stable because if you're healthy, you want to stay healthy, so you need healthcare. If you're not healthy, you want to get healthy. So there are fewer changes in healthcare system, and the opportunities are numerous, from medicine to nursing to physical therapy and on and on. So what we need to emphasize to our parents and students, that engineering, mathematics, physics, life sciences is not only for auto, but there are multiple jobs in engineering, in STEM education.
Okay.
And also, recently we have seen an upsurge in automobile hiring.
Right.
Ford announced that they will hire 4,500 engineers this year. And they came to us. We have a great partnership with them and other companies. We could not even fill those slots.
Sure.
We need to produce many more.
So my guess is that this audience has some employers, probably also has some parents who might have helped finance a traditional college education for students who might be, shall we say, underemployed now. And so what advice do you have? Is it too late if you already have a four-year degree, but you haven't been able to find the dream job? Is it too late to go back to get a certificate? Walter, would you look at someone who's already earned a four-year liberal arts degree? Because what a great background for just about anything, but then wants to go on. And Marilyn, are you seeing?
We're seeing a real surge with students who are coming back now to be recertified and to get the skills they need to go into a STEM-related program.
And
excuse me, Walter.
No, but go ahead.
One other thing that we're seeing is that companies, and Joe, I really applaud your relationship with Delta, Strikers, American Axle, a variety of companies are coming to us now and saying, look, we have a pool of employees who need to have their skills upgraded. They're working with us, just as Joe mentioned, helping us with curriculum, helping us with evaluation, helping us get them into the job market then, and retraining these folks so that they can be an important part of that future.
Walter?
I think we would love to get people with a lot of more experience or outside of the box experience.
Right.
Because this is also what we need. Yeah, you can never say, I train you particular for that specific job, and then you are working in that field until the end of your life. That's not happening. Yeah, so we really need also people with different experience, because when you look to automotive, and you can compare that to the aviation industry, whatever, but automotive is always working at the edge of technology. And you never know where and we have to push the edges, and we never know in which direction we will go in the next couple of years.
So you might
So we really need those flexibility and those different thinking, and what we need is that people are able to connect dots.
Connect the dots. And we were speaking earlier that with Google, all the information is there.
Right.
It's connecting the dots and knowing how to apply it.
Yeah.
So you might welcome in a MAT program someone who already has a 4-year degree, liberal arts trained, but now is going to be looking at something that's much more narrow and more focused on skills. These programs that we've talked about so far, they haven't gone to critical mass yet. So there's still a shortage of talent for the existing jobs. Is there a talent war in Michigan? Are you rating each other, Joe, to get the people that you need? Is that what's happening among employers?
I don't feel it in Michigan. My colleagues may, but I tell you where I do feel it. I feel it down in Texas, where Texas is very, very pro-business, and it's very, very pro-education on the trades skills, if you will. And I'll give you a great example. You ask if whether or not it would take a 4-year student that was retrained on a 2-year associate's degree. Absolutely. And just some of our welders, and quite a few of them down in Texas and the U.S. Gulf Coast, they make $300,000 a year.
Exactly.
Now that qualifies as really rich for some politicians, right? But that's the war we're in. So it's not good for us. It's not good for the economy to have that phenomenon going on. But the fact is, left unchecked and not producing enough of these STEM jobs, we will create a war of talent, and that is not good news for everybody, because eventually that will stall out.
Yeah, and there's another point to that. And just to be honest here, when we all talk about we have to bring manufacturing back, the question is, what kind of manufacturing are we bringing back? We will not bring manufacturing back. We already outsourced to Mexico. We bring back specialty. We bring back manufacturing with highly requests or highly requirements.
Great point.
Yeah? We bring back highly precision things. Yeah? When we have high-speed things, all that. Yeah? And for that, we need highly educated people, and they make a lot of money. So it's a good paying job, and you can have a good foundation for your family on that.
Doesn't it seem like a little bit that what's old is new again? I mean, in terms of in the early part of the 20th century, as the auto industry took off, we had the Henry Ford Trade School. We had the General Motors Institute. We did have employers that were large enough to train their own. What happened? Did we get away from that? And is this a new cycle of employers taking on more of this role?
I think it's some yes and no. I would add a third dimension to that.
Okay.
It's not a cycle, it's more like a spiral. We are on a different level now. It is the same because we train kids. We train them in specialties or in trades we need in the industry. But Henry Ford was one company. Yeah, GM is one company. They particularly designed the curriculum specially for them. In the MET2, we have 31 companies now. And we try to create a standard amongst the industry so that when somebody from Kostal is going to Brose or to Cadillac products, that's the same education. I get in 5 years somebody from their company, they relocate and they want to work for Kostal. I know, they have the same standard education. And this is interchangeable, makes it much easier for us and also for people.
Okay, President.
Mary, at Lawrence Tech, we have all students are required to get a laptop, which is fully loaded with the software that the companies use at their workplace.
Okay.
So what our graduates do when they are hired, when we cannot produce enough of them, they hit the ground running, so to say, because they already know and work on the material they're going to be working for the employer. But in the workforce, we need both the skilled labor as well as professionals who could be CEOs and running the company, but also those who are the ground really doing the work. So there is room for both. So why do people de-emphasize skilled labor sometimes? Because yesterday's Mich Auto event, it was mentioned that less than 1/3 of American parents want a college degree for their kids.
Right.
They want easy money or quick money, or they don't want to invest for long term for their education. For those particular groups, I think skilled labor is a great option because as Joe mentioned, they can make a lot of good money and have a good lifestyle. And others can follow their passion to be professional in the STEM areas.
Okay.
So I think we have room for both of them.
Marilyn, you're kind of the dean of community college presidents in Michigan because your career has spanned a longer period at one institution. So you've seen a lot of trends. And can you speak to what you've seen over your tenure in Kalamazoo in terms of this whole issue of the technical training versus the liberal arts versus the parents who don't think a college degree is important?
Well, it's kind of interesting because our community college, over 50% of our students transfer, and the majority of them transfer to Western Michigan University. But what we've seen in the county is that the K-12 districts have really de-emphasized technical education. It's expensive. Students haven't wanted to be involved. But we came together, the community college and the K-12 districts, and we formed a consortium, and we called it Education for Employment, where we really encourage